right, thanks for coming along, everyone. Today I'm going to be installing some Bilstein B6 struts in my 2007 BMW Z4 Coupe. I'm going to take the two front ones out, change them out, put these new ones in. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how I do that. But also I got something free for you. I made this little hub support tool that goes in a jack stand so that when you remove the strut assembly, the hub and rotor will not fly forward and damage your brake lines. This can be easily made with any type of laser cutting facility. So I am giving you the free file. Links are in the video description below on how to get the free file to make your own support tool. This tool is actually in the BMW book to use to support the hub assembly when you remove the strut. But I made my own. It's really simple and it's really cheap to make using various laser cutting facilities. But again, the file for this, it's called the profile file, is free in the video description. My gift to you, and you can make a couple of them, give them to your friends after they're done, whatever. So let's get to it. So here's a copy of the BMW tool I made, and again, you can get this tool as far as the profile set up and make your own in the link in the video description. But you can see the way it just supports the hub assembly and rotor in place on a jack stand, so that when I remove the strut by taking out these 3 bolts here, it doesn't exactly drop down. It'll just kind of stay in place. Then I can put a jack underneath this once I remove the steering knuckle and the stabilizer link over here. And that'll allow me to kind of just not have this whole thing just kind of flop forward, ruin the brake lines. Also, on some of these cars, you may have back over here on the control arm, in this area over here, you may have a leveling sensor for the headlights. It's on my other side, on the right side of the car, and you should remove that because if the control arm drops down, you could damage the leveling sensor. That I think has a half-inch nut or a 13mm nut on it. You take that off, leave the leveling sensor alone, and just so you clear everything out of the way. So let's get to it. So sometimes I'll just mark these nuts here with a marker, kind of give me a roundabout area. And I also take a look at over here where this alignment pin was, and this hole is around almost at edge to bottom edge. Now I have this tool that is an alignment tool for the camber, and set it, let me just, so that it will kind of be tight and I'll kind of know where it has to be. See, at least this way now it's tight and I can remove it, put it aside, take it off, and at least I know sort of where the camber is going to be on the car. So you can see the slots here. And we can also take a eyeball where they are. It's almost in the middle, but it's a little bit biased towards the outer part. See the way it just moved? And it's dropping down. That's why I have that support there. Okay. It's an 18mm hole for the knuckle. It holds, there's a bracket over here that holds the brake line and the wear sensor indicator wiring. There you go. See, it's a little rusty. That's why you want to clean it up. You want to take it out and you want to clean it up on a wire wheel. All right, so I got a 5/8 wrench over here on the flats on the back of the stabilizer link bolt over here, and it's a 16mm hex on it. There we go. So on the lower end of the link, I'm going to remove that next. Then I'm going to put a pry bar underneath to stabilize and lift it up and take the link out. There you go. So now this strut assembly is free to go. It's free to move. And we're going to just put a jack underneath the control arm, lower it down, lower the strut out of the control arm. See how this thing works? Right, so now that we got this strut out of the car, I just wanted to point out a few things. These springs are not round springs completely. They start narrow, they get wider, then they get narrow again. And these types of spring compressors like this will not really work because you can only usually grab 2 coils. If you watch most people doing videos, they're grabbing 2 coils, then the thing pops off, and then you never really see them taking it apart. And the really proper way to do it is have one of those machines or one of those types of spring compressors that has jaws that come in like this over here and compresses the whole thing down. But again, just trying to compress coils with these, usually you have to try and grab at least part of the retaining caps on either side, you know, and try to go down that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this big clamp that I have and use this on the top and compress the spring and get it out. I've done this before. It's a pretty neat trick. You have to be careful. It really only works with these hook type compressor spring kits. You can get these anywhere. And these really don't work well for that application. And again, if you're using them, they're going to try to grab just two coils. It's not enough to get it completely released. If you watch what happens, it tends to pop open after, and that could be dangerous. So we're going to compress this stuff, take it out, and then I'm going to show you some differences between this and the B6. I'm going to take off the cap, and I just want to show you. They call these spark plug sockets or pass-through sockets. It's a 21 millimeter, and this is a 6 millimeter, goes in here like that, right? So what I'll do is when I have it set up, it's also got a little bit of a rubber piece to retain this in here, you see? So what I'll do is I'll put this in first and lock that in like that, okay? So I catch this first and lock it in like that, okay? And then simply I'll compress the spring setup. The jaws of this piece will go underneath the mount. Let's give it a shot. All right, so let's see how I got this set up. I'm just kind of laying it flat in the vise. I've got a little T5 fist bead slider in here to kind of hold it in place. I'm wedging it in, tightening it up with a punch so it doesn't move. All right, so you can see how I have this set up. Got the clamp holding the retaining plate on the top, and got the hooks, one on one spring and one on the perch on the bottom. And it goes down pretty easy. It's not too bad. Just like this. Okay, so because we're on the retainer plate on the top, we're not going to be able to see some movement of something, but this is pretty well squashed down here. So it should come off with no problem. Oh yeah, we're down all the way. Pretty good, huh? All right, so what I'm doing is I'm going to work it back and forth, right, to try to keep the retainer plate somewhat centered. I'm going to put the 6 millimeter hex socket back in here so that what I can do is I can kind of pull it if I need to, maneuver it a little bit, and work it back and forth. It comes out pretty easy, and I'm watching over here the threads as they rise, okay? That's what I'm doing. It's working pretty fast, moving pretty good. Obviously, if you had a gun, you could do this faster, but I like doing it by hand because I like seeing. Okay, so now I can move it, make sure it's clear, remove this, and keep working it. Also, I use this super slick stuff. I spray it sometimes on the threads of these things so they don't gall. All right, just so that everything just is nice and free all the time. I don't like to have my tools gall the threads up. You see that often. That's all the way up. Very nice. What I can do is I can just push this down and release it. Side two. Probably gonna have to come right off the threads. So if you're going to use the same spring and you're going to use a stock replacement strut, make some marks on the spring where you had these tools before, so you know that you can put it together easily. So just use like a marking pen or a paint pen, mark over here, over here, over here, over here, where you are, so that when you go to put this thing back together, you know where to put the hooks. It's pretty loose. I can just kind of press down and take these hooks off. There's our old strut. All right, so let's see what we got here. You can see that the bump stop is fairly destroyed. Boots are actually okay, but I would buy all this new if I was replacing the strut. This is the bottom rubber pad. I'm going to replace this. I'm going to replace the upper rubber pad as well, and I'm going to replace this mount. Even though it spins okay, I figured it's old. The rubber's 18 years old. Time for a new mount. You can reuse your cap again. This little shield is not available separately, I believe, so we're going to just reuse this, clean it up and reuse this, clean the hat up over here, reuse it, and that's that. Spring, just remember, top. Labels for the top, and that's how it goes. Spring looks in good shape. I'm going to reuse it. But look at the strut, how easy it is to just compress down like this. There's nothing left to it. The car was just basically bottomed out all the time. All right, a few things. If you look at the height, the setup height on the B6, it's much longer than the stock strut. That's because if you look at other videos, that this is actually reversed. It looks like it has a bigger piston, but in fact, this is in the inside of this, and the bump stop is in the inside. So you use the B6 boot, you use the B6 washer, you put the mount on it with the shield, and that's it. Also, the nut here on the B6 is a 22 millimeter nut, or 7/8, and this is 21 millimeter, the old one. So you have to have a pass-through socket for the 22 millimeter or 7/8. And what I used is, I have these sets here that have square edges on them, and they have one that's 7/8, and I use this instead. And that's it. So on the stock strut, you have location pins that go in the opening of the knuckle. That keeps the angle for the bracket correct for the stabilizer link for the sway bar, okay? If you notice, it's a certain angle, and it has to be like that when it's in the knuckle. B6, for some reason, they don't put pins in it. They put a stupid sticker on there with a little line over here, and this line has to be in the center of the knuckle, right, where the opening is. And that gives you the correct angle again for the bracket here. All right, since this line is so hard to see, I'm going to just put a ruler here and a Sharpie and make it a little bit longer so I can see it from the back with a mirror or something like that. So let's just do this, kind of set it up. Like that. Kind of looks a little crooked, but that's the way their line is, but it'll probably be okay just in that area. What I would probably do is go in with an inspection mirror, okay, and then look in the back and make sure that it's kind of lined up where it has to be. But also I want you to notice that the way this thing sits here, the taper goes into the knuckle over here, and this extends past the knuckle. So when we put this in here, if you notice how it's going to be in the knuckle over here. You're not going to see anything protruding out of the knuckle anymore. So it's the same height, it just looks a little bit different. All right, so I just want to show you something. The difference in the height of the pistons, right? So when we're putting it back together, we're not even going to have to use probably any compression at all to put this thing together. The weight of the car will put the spring back down where it has to be. All right, second. So first thing is going to put the rubber on here, new rubber piece, line it up with the slot here. That's a cool thing. The B6 has its own washer that goes on there. It's tapered and goes one way only. Goes down there like that, all right? Spring goes on. Just like that. So I've got the rubber on the new top retainer, putting that on there. I don't think I'm gonna have to use a compressor at all, just a little strength there. Got the mount with the washer there, putting it through. The nut on here. So, by the way, this one now is 7 millimeters instead of 6 millimeters, and I'm using a standard 7/8 socket with these square sides on it. Let's see how it goes, if this even moves. All assembled. Now we just got to torque the nut down. So the instructions say 54 foot-pounds, so I got a wrench over here. Torque to 54 pounds. Ready to go back in the car. All right, I'm using the MEYLE links. They're made in Turkey. That's the part number of them. They're a little bit beefier, not by much. Here's the factory link, okay? If I take a caliper and I measure them, it's like 9 millimeters, and these are 10 millimeters. So they're 1 millimeter bigger in diameter. The bearing areas are slightly bigger too, okay? And that's about it. The nuts and the pieces over here, the flats are the same size, all right? But so we're gonna put these in instead. These have been in for 18 years. They look in pretty good shape, but just the rubber's kind of messed up, so it's all dried out. Time to change them. So I put this strut in the knuckle, and I'm just lining it back up. And I left the alignment pin up there so I can help just catch it correctly in the body. Like that. It's all lined on the top. Bolts are in. Gonna put the nuts on the top. Then I'll show you what I do on the bottom to line up the strut. It's a beautiful day in sunny Florida. Hope the wind isn't too bad. So, Gonna raise this up a bit, compress it just a hair so I can still move this, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look with a little mirror here and make sure that I'm lined up where I have to be. Just gonna go, oops. All right, that looks good. It's lined up. Remember I put that Sharpie marker in there? It's lined up exactly in the middle of the slot where we want it. And we're gonna lock it down. Now what I do is I'll raise it up a bit. So I can get the bracket on. And I clean up the bolt. And I also use this surface shield from Blaster. I kind of coat all the hardware with it. And I spray the threads inside. I clean up everything with it. All right, just so you know, because people are going to be asking, spec on this is 81 Newton meters, or about 50 foot-pounds. So it's all torqued into place. Next, we're going to do the link. What I do with the link is I will attach it to the bottom first. So I'm going to put the stabilizer for the sway bar link in place over here. I call it a stabilizer, but it's just a sway bar link. Catch the threads on the nut. And what I'll do is I'll tighten that up. Then I'm going to have to pry the sway bar down to catch it in the top of the strut. Okay, so I just got to raise this up now. Catch the top end into the strut brace here, like that. All right, here we are, all installed, all lined properly. Link is in place. Now going up onto the top, this is what I wanted to show you. You could see here the factory pin that they put in on the mount. Okay, and I'm going to remove this because you could see it's way off from where I was, and then I'll put that gauge on it and make the adjustment once the wheel is back on the ground. But I'm assuming that this is a starting point on most cars. These pins are in place. Maybe it's a certain factory camber adjustment. But the fact of the matter is, anytime you change suspension height, you're going to change what's going on. And we'll put a cap on this back here too. Ooh. So I'm just pulling it back to a line where things were. I have some camera gauges I'll put on later on and double check where I'm at. Here we go. I need some coffee. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee to contribute to the channel, links are below. There's also links for that tool, for the file, and links for all the torque specifications and descriptions, and all that is below in the video. How to contact me, it's all there below in the video description. I know on mobile applications it's a little hard to see, but it is there if you keep on scrolling and all of that stuff like that. I have a list of all the parts that I purchased for this job, all the torque specifications for the nuts and bolts, everything is all there. So again, please read it. If you want to contact me, information again is below. Thanks for watching. See you soon.